So one of the things that I'm super grateful about in coming to work for the Salvation Army, I started with you guys about 9 years ago, is that when you guys go through your hiring process, you have a fairly simple and straightforward requirement that we support the mission of the Salvation Army staff. You didn't tell me that I had to have a personal relationship with Christ. You didn't tell me that I had to come to church every Sunday. And I greatly appreciate that because of that, I believe that God brought me to the Salvation Army along with hundreds of other staff members so that they can get the opportunity to see and feel what it's like to actually live in a Christ-like manner every single day. So I want to thank you guys for that. But in part of my journey, I want to kind of fast forward to actually Philly Croc Conference in 2014. So I've gone to 7 of these Croc conferences. And in Philly, I got to give a presentation. And in that presentation, I went ahead and I quoted Proverbs 16:9, which says, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their step." And I didn't know what I was doing, but out loud in front of 300 of you, I went ahead and made a deal with God that I would let him plan my steps. And what I didn't realize was that he actually listens. I mean, everybody told me, but he shows up. And in the subsequent about 3 or 4 weeks that followed, he showed up in some really big ways, which I won't go through right now. But one of those ways was he sent me a book. And that book was a book called Unchristian by 2 gentlemen, David Kinnaman and Gabe Lyons. And the book is awesome. I totally recommend it. But there was one thing buried deep in that book, and it was a web address. And the web address is qideas.org. And I went and I checked it out. And at that time, when I was grappling with what the church is today compared to the church of my youth, qideas.org filled that void. And for me, it was a huge thing. So 3 years later, I've been following the platform. I'm gonna let our next speaker tell you a little bit more about the organization. I've been a part of their ministry, and this year, for the first time, I've decided to get actively involved, and I'm hosting actually a Q event in conjunction with Coeur d'Alene Croc Center this October. So I'm pretty excited about that. But they have graciously, the Q organization has agreed and actually sent one of their amazing folks up from Nashville, Tennessee to meet with us today and introduce what we call Q Ideas or Q Commons. So can you guys give a really warm welcome to Matt Hogan of Q?
Thank you, Jessica. It's good to be with you this morning. I just want to begin by first, in about 8.5, 9 minutes, by celebrating what the Salvation Army does. I think what you're doing is you're pioneering a way forward for the Christian voice and culture, and especially you're pioneering the way forward in how we are to love our cities well and our communities well. And so love of one another, love of our neighbor. We believe as an organization that this is the best witness that we can provide to our divided culture is that is our witness, is to love our neighbors, to love our city. And so Q is standing on your shoulders in a lot of ways. Love for city, love for neighbor. So we're grateful for what you're doing. You're setting the example. And so 10 years ago, about a decade, Gabe and Rebecca Lyons started what we call Q now. It's Q Ideas. And what their vision was for thoughtful Christian leadership. And how can Christians be the way forward? And so we do this through this key mission statement of staying curious, of think well, and advance good. And so what we do as an organization is we ask questions. That's what Q stands for. We're asking questions that equip and engage Christians to faithfully live into our cultural moment. And so what we're doing through these key missions and vision statements is to restore the credibility of the Christian voice in culture. Our society says that Christians are irrelevant and extreme, right? That's what society is saying about us today. The vehicle that we believe to make a difference and to change this narrative and to provide a new narrative is through Christian leaders. And we believe in the ripple effect. And we believe that the vision forward for how Christian faith is going to be advanced in the 21st century is through thoughtful Christian leadership. Thoughtful is a very particularly chosen word. And so trust, right? We all know this, right? That trust for our leaders is at an all-time low. That division is everywhere. And so our mission is to advance the common good together. And so it's no surprise that we live in a chaotic culture. Our mission is to respond, we believe, as Christians in the church, and through the blood of Jesus Christ that we believe that we need to respond to our chaotic culture through three key perspectives. And this is how we've been shaping our research, and this is what we've come up with. These are the ways that our culture is chaotic. Number one, we live in a divided nation. And 95% of Americans believe that people on opposite ends of the ideological spectrum label one another so severely that it makes finding common ground impossible. And the second key perspective is the anti-religion sentiment. 46% believe that religion is part of the problem in the world. And lastly, the third way our culture is chaotic is through accelerated social change. Society is more fractured than ever and are desperately seeking after, quote, the good life. The Christian faith is not a viable answer to our culture anymore, it seems. And so what we're left with is confused Christians, right? We're left with a bunch of really confused followers of Jesus. And it brings us back to this key word I mentioned of trust. Is who do we trust? Who do we trust as Christians, and how are we going to respond to this cultural moment? And who are we going to listen to? And who's going to be the voice that's leading forward on top of what Jesus is already doing in his redemptive work, just kind of this new narrative underneath all of creation? But how are we going to speak into that? Like, how are we going to be the thoughtful Christian leaders? And so Christians are looking for leadership. They're looking for kindness, and they're looking for thoughtfulness, right? And so the church's influence has shifted from the center to the fringe of society. 4 out of 5 churchgoers say that we wish our pastor would help us know how to navigate the tough topics. And being a millennial, this statistic is particularly poignant, that 59% of Christians, millennials, walk away from the church in their adulthood. So how will Christians respond? I mean, these statistics are accurate. These statistics are scary. They're real. And so how are we going to respond to this? What particular questions are we going to ask? But we believe that there's a way forward. We believe that there is a new narrative that Christians can listen to and can respond to through, like I said, through questions, through asking questions, through faithfulness, and through this most strong way to do this is through table conversations. It's the way we're set up now. We believe that there is a way forward, and so we want to ask the right kinds of questions. And so what if we could answer the major questions our neighbors are asking us Christians? What if we could become the healers, confidently bringing people together in our divided moment? What if Christians could confidently engage the difficult conversations and issues our society is facing with hope and with love? And lastly, what if we could work together to catalyze Christian renewal throughout American life in the 21st century? And so these are some of the questions that we ask every week as a part of Q Ideas. And so what's our model then? You're like, okay, this is a lot of thought. This is a lot of 30,000-foot view of what the problem is in culture. And I think there's a need for that kind of perspective. But then we as an organization want to be on the ground. We want to be living this out with you faithfully. And so how can we provide a tool in your toolbox? Like, this isn't the church. This isn't another way to become this specific entity known as the church. But no, this is just another tool in your toolbox to be leading and serving your community as well. And so we do this as an organization through 3 key perspectives. We analyze current culture. This is our thought leadership and our research. We do this through educating Christian leaders and through all of our programs that you'll see there, and I'll run through those in a second. And then lastly, through mobilizing Christian engagement. These are the 3 ways that we want to live this out. This is our model. This is our way forward. And so the first thing I want to address, I want to just really cover number 2 this morning, is our programs. And the first thing is our Q conference, which I know Jessica has been to before. Every spring we meet and we have a conference for Christian leaders where we gather around tables just like this in Nashville, and there'll be 1,200 people, 1,200 Christian leaders from all ends of the spectrum, from pastors to educators to practitioners to Salvation Army leaders to all kinds of people. And you can see the growth here on this screen. The next way that we do this is where I know this is exactly what is going on with the Kroc Centers, is what we call Q Commons. And this is our way of being kind of in each city around the world. And so we believe that there is this like town hall message, that this way that we can rally together as a community in our cities. And it's a simulcast where you have 3 speakers in your room that are educating and equipping Christians in the room about culture. And then we send in 3 of our Q talks to you via live stream. It's just this amazing way to cover kind of the systemic global problems of culture and how can Christians think well about it. And then we minimize it down to your local context. And you have that conversation in the room around tables just like this. This would be an ideal room for a Q Commons. And so 13 countries, 5 continents, nearly 500 cities. It's been a lot of fun over the last 4 years. And so, like I said, 1,000 KrocCon talks will happen this fall. 135 cities will be participating. Nearly 25,000 Christians will all be having the same conversation. This is our way forward, conversations and listening well to one another. And lastly, our program called Q Union, which is on college campuses, and we do the exact same thing there, but we invite student leaders to speak, combined with our Q Talks, where they're both addressing culture together. This is the way forward, conversations. And so, like you know from maybe even the biblical text, kind of this 7 mountains, this is what we believe to be the 7 channels of culture. That when all of these channels are all working together and they're all speaking to one another and we're all collaborating with one another, that we can provide a voice that's redemptive, that's renewal, that heals our divided nation. And so these are the 7 channels of culture that I'm sure you're familiar with. And so once again, our 4 key programs that we do each year. And so this is our new opportunity, church. This is our way forward. This is what we believe in our 10 years, our decade of research on how can Christians live faithfully into culture. This is how we believe there's a new way forward. And I think the most particular way that we believe that this can happen is through listening, is through empathy, is to listening to one another and responding with hospitality and conversation. And so this year on October 26th, we'll be hosting Q Commons all across the world. And Jessica's one of our Q Commons hosts. It's just going to be this fun night of 25,000 Christians all having a conversation together. And our theme is Healing Our Divided Nation. And if you want to come hear a little bit more about that, I'll be in Ballroom GH this afternoon from 3 to 4. And I'd love to share more specifically about Q Commons, this city-by-city town hall. I just had this vision and this hope and this future of what would it look like if every Kroc Center was hosting a Q Commons. That through the lens of the Christian perspective, that no, we can provide a voice into culture, that we can think well about culture, that we can lead in our communities, and the Christian voice is no longer silenced, but is the leading voice in our communities. That's what we believe, and we'd love for you to be a part of it. And so these are some of the talks that will be participating with us this fall as a part of our Q Commons event. And man, I would just love to speak with you about that from 3 to 4 in Ballroom GH. My name's Matt Hogan. I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and I'm encouraged by this experience with you today, because what you're doing is redemptive. You're providing renewal into culture by thinking about how can we be missional in our context, maybe even below the surface, not as explicitly living out this, but we know that God is renewing all things back to His original creation, that He will restore creation to how He intended it to be. So church, how will we respond? There is a way forward. Thank you so much.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you, Matt, for that presentation. We appreciate that. What an awesome opportunity. And even now, folks, you will know that we have people serving in the aftermath of the hurricanes. And some of you have noticed that there are some empty tables up here. I think many folks represented by these tables are doing EDS service. And we do need to keep them in our thoughts and prayers, particularly our colleagues from Puerto Rico. And so let's continue to be mindful of that. And Matt, one of the neat things about this, if you can call it neat in the face of these disasters, is that we have opportunity to listen to people and to serve them in the name of Christ. And so many of our colleagues are unable to be here today because they are on the front lines of service. Give them a hand, even though they're not here. Well, I'm very pleased this morning to be able to introduce our guest speaker. Tara Vandersande has been on the staff of Human Resources at Willow Creek Community Church for 10 years. She currently is the Staff Development Director as part of the church's leadership team, and she brings 8 years of senior management experience and many fine attributes, I might add. We were first introduced to Tara by Steve Gillen. You remember that, Tara? He is the senior pastor at Willow Creek, one of the senior pastors at Willow Creek Community Church. We saw it a speaker, and some of you were at the 2015 symposium on congregational life. How many were at that event? Do you remember? Okay. Well, Tara was invited to be a speaker, and she was so well received at that event that we, in the Central Territory, invited her back to our annual Kroc Officers Retreat. And she's been there for 2 years now. But in addition to that, we have in our National Certificate in Kroc Center Leadership invited Tara to be a part of the guest instructor staff. And what an exceptional job she has done. She has become a true colleague and friend, personally, but also to the Salvation Army. It's a great pleasure to be able to introduce her. She has many, many strengths, of course. She's certified as an instructor with the Ken Blanchard Institute and Lominger International. She's also certified as a lay counseling leader with the Seattle School of Theology and Psychology. She holds a BA in Psychology and Business from Bradley University. She loves to learn. She's a great mother to a young son, married to her husband, Rich. And it's really neat because Rich, she's been so much a part of the Salvation Army that Rich actually said to her, "Are you going to join that organization?" To which she said, "I'm already a member," right? But she is an exceptional speaker. You're going to really appreciate what she has to share with us this morning. Won't you greet with me Tara Vandersande?
Thank you, James. Hi, good morning. Fantastic. It is a pleasure to be with you. I do consider myself a part of the Salvation Army, but aren't we all? As Christ followers, we are all a part of his army, doing the most good where we can and where we're placed. I'm going to talk today about engaging leadership, and in that time, I'm going to tell a little bit of a story. Over my career, I've had many different jobs. I have been the dispenser of frozen yogurt treats. I have been a computer programmer, and I have worked within an Alzheimer's research lab. I could not have predicted where my career path would have gone at the beginning. I don't know how many 18-year-olds set out into the workforce and know exactly where they're going to be later in life. I sure did not. But what I did know is that God had a promise, and he had a plan for me that I could trust in. I also know that God prepared work for us, and he prepared it to be good. I'm reminded of the Old Testament. We'll go back a little bit. When in the Garden of Eden, God created man to work within the garden. And I couldn't find an appropriate pre-fall picture of Adam in the garden, and so I figured this one would do pretty good. After the fall, we have at least some covering there. But what I had forgotten to think about within my work is that there was the fall. And within the fall, we are revealed our true human nature, and that is that we are imperfect human beings. I don't know how many of you approached your work and expected to come into the Christian workplace and have it be a form of utopia. How many of you were naive when you were young and thinking that we would all be restored and redeemed within this earthly body? Well, about 10 years ago, I was transitioning from the marketplace into a ministry opportunity. I had been offered a job at my church, Willow Creek Community Church, to join their HR staff. And at the time, I was thinking this is a fantastic opportunity to use all of my marketplace experience, all my skills, and all my passions to build the kingdom of God. And I was overly enthusiastic and optimistic, picturing Genesis 2, how God had created man to be in the garden and work it for it to be good. What I failed to realize was that this was a workplace also filled of human beings. And so this really was a mission impossible, but we all know that nothing is impossible with God. My assignment was to cultivate a flourishing culture that honors God and stewards our talents. This was really exciting for me because when I looked back over my workplace journey, I realized that God had put into my heart just this kingdom assignment to cultivate a culture that honors God no matter where I had been assigned. So whether that was in the secular workplace, now within the Christian workplace, this was going to come to fruition. So what is culture? And what was my true assignment? Workplace culture is defined as a character and personality of your organization. It is what makes your organization unique and is the sum of its values, traditions, beliefs, interactions, behaviors, and attitudes. Every culture is similar to a family. You bring in a history to it, and you bring in attitudes, and you bring in a way that we all behave at the table. I want you to picture how you interacted with your family, probably when you were a teenager, and you're sitting at your dining room table. Who led the conversation? Who made the jokes? Who was the one that always made sure that everybody had a part to play? Who was the one that always got up angry? This is what we see within the workplace culture. They're the unspoken norms that create who you are. What we've learned is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. You can have the most awesome and engaging mission, which I believe the Salvation Army does. You really are on the front lines, not just of serving the hands and feet, but also serving the hearts, minds, and souls. This is tantamount to what our world needs today. We need Jesus. But our culture, our organizational culture, and how we do that with each other, whether we play nice or we don't play nice, how we talk to one another when we disagree, how we bring a new idea to the table, whether I function in my silo or whether I play as a team. These things are going to be the barriers that get into the way of our mission. So let's go back in time. 10 years ago, when I joined Willow Creek Community Church, you're probably familiar with the church or the Global Leadership Summit, which is run out of our association. But the church has an arm that is similar to the Salvation Army. We have both local and global missions. We have a care center that provides food and tangible needs to the poor. We also have a lot of different ministries. And 10 years ago, we were doing everything for everyone all the time. We were having weekend services, we had outreach, we had discipleship, our Compassion and Justice, which is our care center arm. We were doing weddings and funerals. We were also doing conferences every month. We were expanding our global partnerships. We were providing, in the middle of that, having leadership changes. Some of our pastoral staff had changed, some of our teaching pastors had changed. And then comes 2008, 2009, economic uncertainty. And then in come me. Welcome, Tara. Help us create a wonderful and healthy, thriving culture. Fantastic. So this is about what I stepped into. Now, from the outside, our church was and is a thriving ministry. We were providing a biblical teaching. We were bringing people to Christ, baptizing people, serving the poor, providing conferences. If you came in through our doors, you would have thought everything was running brilliantly. Inside the doors, this is what it felt like. And I don't know about you, if you've ever been inside of a work culture where you feel enthusiastic when you walk in, but as soon as you walk down the halls, you encounter someone that does this. Right? Not, hey, how's it going? Now, this is my first day. I'm like, hey, the sun's shining. Hey, it's a great day. And I'm getting a lot of this. This was our staff. And our staff was exhausted. They weren't the wrong people, but they were given too much, too soon, without a lot of the basic essentials that human beings need. So how did we end up here? It's probably like many of you and how you get to the same places in life where you say, how did I get here? And it reminded me when I was first married and we bought our first home. I was again, naive and optimistic homeowner, but neither my husband or I were very handy. I don't think I had used a tool. My father and my mother had done most of the upkeep in the home, but we were very excited to own our new home until within the first month, we started seeing this appear on the walls. So this was a home built in the 1940s. And in the 1940s, they used plaster walls. And I was not familiar with plaster walls. So my first encounter with this is I said, that's great. we will go to Home Depot and we will get spackle, right? Isn't that a fun word? Because spackle fixes everything. And so on my plaster walls, I spackled everything over. Now, no, I didn't chip off the paint that wasn't working. I didn't cover it over, but spackle was going to be the answer. So that is what I used. Until a week later, all the cracks just started emerging again up in the wall. So this is my solution to that. Because when spackle doesn't fix it, mirrors and pictures will. Now, this worked out pretty well, probably for the first 6 months. And then other cracks started showing up on the wall. So I was trying to look for other solutions, and this was before Google solved everybody's problem. From which restaurant to go to which movie was out, I had really run out of solutions for how to fix my walls until I came across a magazine ad that I thought maybe I could do this. I was really, really tempted, but being newly married and being a new homeowner, I didn't even have that much money to go and cover my walls with this many pictures. So we needed to get an expert. And this expert revealed to us that we were fighting symptoms. We were trying to cover up symptoms on the wall with spackle, which wasn't even the right solution for plaster. And the more that we tried to cover things up, the worse that they were going to get, because there was something going on behind the wall. We had a brick house, and that brick house from the 1940s had never had the mortar repaired between the bricks. So I learned a new concept, tuck pointing. How many of you ever heard of tuck pointing? See, you guys are smarter than me. We would not have known about this unless we had called in an expert resource and we had had an assessment. But we went over 12 months just trying to fight symptoms and trying to cover it up. I don't know about you, but this is how I've addressed a lot of problems in my life when I don't know how to solve them, because I want to be competent, I want to be the one who can fix it, and I have tools and resources, especially now that I have Google. I still do this. And we did install our own sink disposal by ourselves, thank you very much, using Google and YouTube. We did that, and we didn't die. I think we all need objective expert assessments, especially when it comes to the workplace and to culture. There are a lot of things we can do on our own, and there are a lot of things that you might be sensing or you have a gut feel that there's a symptom. There's something not right in my team. That one person seems to always come in a little late. That other person doesn't seem to engage in our meetings the way that they used to. Or it seems that when I walk down the halls, I get this sense that people are just not feeling together and united. Those are symptoms that should be paid attention to. So what we did in 2009 was we did call in an expert. And we called the Best Christian Workplace Institute, and we asked them to do an assessment with our staff. See, we needed facts. We had a lot of feelings, and we had a lot of observations, but we didn't know what the problem was. What was behind the cracks in the wall? And the Best Christian Workplace was able to do a survey for us so that we could get more information. We learned a new concept called engagement. And we were trying to figure out, do we really want to know or assess engagement? Isn't this just like job satisfaction? Do we really want to know, are people happy? You know, do they want more work parties, more lunches out? Do they want to do, miniature golfing? And we were quickly redirected to say, no, this isn't just about workplace satisfaction. Engagement is about the commitment and emotional connection that your employees feel to the organization. It's their time, their energy, and enthusiasm that they want to pour into service. This is the type of measurement that tells you, do my people feel like they are a part of something bigger than themselves? Would they sleep on the cot at night to make sure that the homeless get served? If we had a huge project, if we have a hurricane, if we have a disaster, are the people on my team the ones that want to go out on the front lines with enthusiasm? Or are we dragging them behind us continually? This was a huge measure for us. We also found out that engagement really dictates our workplace approach, which helps our employees feel more committed. It'll help us reach our goals and our own well-being. Now, I show this picture first because this is a very simplistic version of what I'll show you next that has been proven out in the Harvard's Business Review. But basically, a fantastic, healthy culture, committed employees, you achieve your goals, and employees have healthy well-being. So this is what the research has shown in terms of engagement. If you have a compelling place to work and serve, meaning your staff are fully engaged, they're fully bought in, they're fully a part of your vision and your mission, you will have better staff retention and staff productivity. People will want to stay longer. They will want to be more productive, and they're doing that for intrinsic values, not because they're being made to do so. When you have those things, then you will have a compelling place to receive service and ministry. You will have more ministry value within the Salvation Army, and your congregation and your members will be more satisfied, and they'll be more loyal, and they'll keep coming back, and they will refer other neighbors in the community to the Salvation Army and to the Kroc Center. That's how that happens. It's not better marketing. It's not better branding. It's all about what happens inside. When you have that going on, you're going to have multiplied growth and multiplied effectiveness. This has been studied within the for-profit world, the nonprofit world, within churches, and within outreach ministries globally. Internal employee engagement leads to growth and leads to multiplied impact. Here's some other stats for you if you're not convinced yet that engagement matters, is that you will have increased employee performance by 40% with a fully engaged team. You will increase your customers, which means your members, which means your congregation. Their satisfaction increases by 18% just by being around an engaged team. You will multiply your financial success, which means you'll be more above the waterline and not below the waterline in terms of your operating dollars by 4 times, and a decrease in employee turnover by 14%. Now, when we think about turnover within the church, I'm not just looking at numbers. When I think about 14% of our staff and the time it takes to hire and to train and to even things that are intangible like their history, a staff member that has been with you for 5+ years has the history and the heart of your organization that is almost irreplaceable. So if you think about high turnover, this is not just, oh gosh, I've got to hire someone. This is, how else am I going to get another heartbeat? This person's going to need to be here long enough to know us, to love us, to represent us well, and to be an ambassador. Those turnover numbers are huge. Some additional stats in case you are overseeing any type of part-time labor, especially your lifeguards, childcare workers, anything like that. How many of you are ever affected by absenteeism? No-shows. People are sick or they call in, right? Those things are not just obstacles, but they can hamper your ability to care for your community. They find a difference of 37% between high-performing engaged teams and low-performing non-engaged teams. 37% difference. Same with the turnover stats there. You also have safety incidents go down. And so when you're talking about people that slip or misplace things or leave ladders out, all those types of things that happen within the Kroc Center, this goes down 48%. So just some other stats there just in terms of quality, customer ratings, productivity, and profitability. Again, engagement really matters. So how does this look for you? Let's look at 10 employees, and they are all in your organizational boat. So if we were to blow this out, we're just going to get some percentages with this. This is your crew. The statistics right now from all this survey globally show that 33%, 3 out of your 10 people are engaged. They're your enthusiastic team members. Yay! They're coming in, they're ready, they're prayed up, they're coffeeed up, they're ready to go. They're the ones actually pulling your ship forward. 51%, 5 of those people are neutral. And neutral means they're hanging out, doing what they need to do, and they might kind of do this in the water. Hey, look at me, I'm kind of paddling, kind of nuts. When the 3 people up in front are doing the full row. 16%, the 2 people in the back, are actively disengaged. 2 out of 10 people in your organization are actively disengaged, which means they're involved in gossip, which means they're involved in the meetings after the meetings. Did you hear, right? How many of you that is one of the number 1 predictors of engagement is how many meetings after the meeting you have, right? All in favor? Aye, you walk out. Can you believe what he just said? Can't believe we're doing that. 2 out of your 10 people actively disengaged. They are not for forward momentum, they are against it. So, high cost of low morale. We talked about some of these stats. I didn't know if you wanted to take a picture of this one. I kind of liked it better. I like the smiley faces. But if you look at the disengaged employee, 87% are likely to leave. Now, for someone that's truly disengaged, that isn't an expert resource, you're probably thinking, great, good riddance. I'm glad for you to go. But what we fail to realize is that there are reasons why they are disengaged. There is a reason why the plaster is cracked. And you may not want to lose these people. You might want to try to re-engage them. So the first thing is first, and measurement matters. You cannot try to combat engagement when you don't know what you're fighting. You're fighting symptoms. And at first you're thinking, well, maybe this is a pay thing. Maybe we just need to pay people more. Maybe this is a flexibility thing. Maybe we need to provide people some more flexibility or let people go home early. Or maybe we all wear jeans on Friday. That'll fix engagement. Again, this is spackle. We're just doing lots of spackle on plaster walls. When you get a measurement, you can find out which one of the areas of engagement is affected the most. Where should we be focusing our energy with a laser beam of focus so that we can combat that first? When you do an assessment, you will look at different levels of health. There is toxic. You could have a toxic staff, and it would be highly political, closed, no trust, a lot of fear, more autocratic leadership, low staff engagement, dishonesty. This is the meeting after the meeting, that horrible feeling of walking past people in the hall and not feeling united. Critical moment is an area of staff culture that if you don't start making some fixes, you're going to go toxic, or you could go more toward healthy. So this is more compliance. I will do what you ask me to do because I'm a good soldier. I'm not doing what you asked me because that I know that it's right and it feels good intrinsically. The outlook is uncertain, lots of negativity, limited action. This is more of the paddling. I'm just kind of paddling with my hands. In a healthy culture, your staff feel encouraged. There are healthy relationships, shared leadership, authentic accountability, and a positive outlook. Now you go to the next level to flourishing. If you have a flourishing culture, there's high trust, purely authentic relationships where people look one another in the eye and have positive conflict, where people can challenge the status quo and still move ministry forward. It's dynamic, effective leadership, and risk-taking is innovative. This is what happens when you have a flourishing culture. So, 2009, where are we as a culture? Not healthy, not flourishing. We were at a 3.82. We were at a critical moment very near toxic. How many of you have heard our senior pastor, Bill Hybels, talk about this at the Global Leadership Summit? A couple of people did. He uses the phrase, this was pain on a stick, when he talked about this moment. See, for the first 2 years before we had taken this survey, our senior staff knew something was wrong, and they were using a lot of spackle. By the time we took the survey, again, everybody kind of had a feeling that we might not be the most healthy culture, but we were doing so much good ministry, we thought surely we wouldn't be near toxic. So this truly was pain on a stick. But we also believe that facts are friends. And when you have facts, you can move forward. And these facts helped us with a strategy. First thing that we learned was that there's no silver bullet. And our friends at the Best Christian Workplace helped us see that there wasn't just one thing that we could do that would fix everything. Spackle. We couldn't go to the store. We couldn't manufacture it. But we had 3 areas that we could focus on that over time, with perseverance and with intentionality, we would start making some headway with our engagement. We did from 2009, and I only have up to 2015 here because our scores over the last 2 years have remained about the same. But just so you can see the trajectory, from 2009 to 2010, we didn't make a huge jump. This does not happen overnight. Building trust takes time. And your staff, your employees have to see that this matters to you and you're not going to give up. The worst thing that you could do is take a survey and do nothing with it. The second worst thing you could do is take a survey, do a lot with it, and never do it again. So for us, we had to show the intentionality and that our staff really mattered. How they were experiencing the work as they did the ministry really mattered. So some of the keys to engagement that were important for us that I also believe are important for you. First thing, measurement matters. 2, courage, transparency, and action are required. The first part is courage. You may or may not be the decision maker here in the room. You might not be the one who can say, let's do a staff engagement survey, but it takes courage to lead up. It takes courage to say that there are cracks on the wall and there's something that we need to do about it. And it takes courage, if you are a decision maker in the room, to say, okay, we're going to do an engagement survey, and we're going to figure out what the facts are in this situation. Second part of this, the transparency. Our senior pastor stood in front of our entire staff and shared the results with them. And he didn't just share the number. He read some of the write-in comments to our staff to let them know that they were heard. And he said it was the most painful experience he's ever had because he came before our staff and he apologized. And he said, I am not accountable for every single thing that's gone wrong, but I am ultimately responsible for what happens within our staff. I'm a shepherd over this flock and I have failed you. This is what our senior leader said to us. And then he read the comment he said that most grieved him. And he said, this comment, he said, has kept me up at night. And I vow that I will never, ever put our staff in a position to feel this way again. And the comment was, I do such incredible ministry work for others, but inside this organization, I feel like a grunt. I feel like a grunt. And he said, never again. That took a lot of courage and a lot of transparency. And then it took action. A senior pastor said, never again. Therefore, we are going to talk about engagement as a staff culture. We're going to bring it up in our meetings, we're going to bring it up in our departments, and we're going to keep it in front of us so we can have a healthy culture. Third part of this is that people investments result in culture dividends. When you invest in your people, specifically your frontline supervisors and your managers and your leaders, it will result in a healthy culture and multiply your people efforts. We have had a stronger retention and a lower turnover rate since we started focusing on our engagement. We have seen the dividends of some manager development initiatives over the last 10 years so that our people, we know from the survey, they feel valued, they feel heard, they feel developed, they feel seen. So we know that this is true. And the fourth one is that culture is everyone's responsibility. This is not just for the senior leader. This is not just for the managers, the leaders. This is for you. This is for all of us. The way I show up at work determines how my culture will look and feel. The way that you show up, the way that you show up, the way that you show up, the way that you treat your team, the way that you treat your volunteers determines your culture. It's really important for our entire staff to know that culture is everybody's responsibility. So you hold the key. You especially hold the key if you happen to carry one of these mugs around. Raise your hand if you oversee any staff or volunteers, part-time, full-time, any of them. Raise your hand high. How many of you oversee, look at all these people with the best boss mug? World's best boss. Okay, here's some great stats for you all. 75% of workers will voluntarily leave their jobs because of their boss, not because of their job. 75% of the people join organizations and they leave managers. People join organizations, they leave managers. They are joining the Kroc Center because of the vision and the mission and what you are doing in the community. They will leave the Kroc Center because of a bad boss. 35% of U.S. workers say they would forego a pay raise if their boss was fired. 35% of the people, I would rather take less pay than work for a bad boss. And the last one, disengaged managers are 3 times more likely to have disengaged employees. This is why you and your role really matter. You really do hold the key. If you are not engaged, if you do not feel all in, it will affect your entire team. It will affect your entire volunteer staff. Now, moment of truth, how many of you have ever worked for a bad boss? I have. Now, my bad boss was actually a fantastic person. And it's not my current boss, so we can talk about this. This was a while ago, in case he's going to watch this later. He's a great boss. This boss was a peer of mine. And I had worked in an organization that I truly loved. I loved the work that I did. I loved the people that I worked with. And this peer professional was someone who was a trusted partner. At the same time, I also knew that he was an inexperienced manager. And when he was promoted and made the boss of me, I did not have any animosity to him as a person. But what I soon realized was he lacked the skills to manage well. He didn't know how to set expectations. He didn't know how to provide feedback. He didn't know how to praise for progress. He only knew how to demand and to create edicts and pronouncements and to lead through his individual contribution. He wasn't a bad person, but he was a bad boss, and I eventually did leave. So you can be in a fantastic organization and leave because of your boss. So when we did our survey back in 2009, we had the Best Christian Workplace Institute take out each department with an individual score. So as opposed to just having one score, we had an overall, but we had each department so we could look at the difference. You don't need to know all of the numbers or the departments, but you can see a high variability between the highest engaged department and the lowest engaged department. We had a 3.13, which is toxic. And then we had a 4.44, which is flourishing, within the same organization. What this showed us, and this variability, is that the department leadership can dictate the engagement. So this again goes back to if you're a disengaged leader, you will have a disengaged team. Similar to the story I just shared with you about a really good person who happened to become my boss, who was ill-equipped to be a boss, this is how our staff was experiencing their leadership. So there were some steps that we had to take to resolve that, to make sure that we had the right people in the right position with the right skills. Today, you'll see a difference in the variability. We now have a 4.34 all the way up to a 4.84. See the difference in the variability? We still have differences by department. We still have things that we want to solve, but we don't have toxic to flourishing. We've moved everybody more to the middle. Great. We're going to skip that. So today's results for us, we are no longer toxic. We are no longer in the critical moment. We are actually in the flourishing zone of 4.39. And I don't say that to toot our horn, to say, look how great we are. I say that to show you how long it took. It took a long time, and a lot of determination, and a lot of perseverance, and a lot of prayer. This wasn't something, again, that happened overnight. It was over a long period of time. It's almost harder to maintain a flourishing status than it is to move from toxic up to healthy. Trying to maintain our teams when everything can change from leaders to team members to a focus on the culture that we're working on, it's very difficult to maintain that, but we're keeping that before us. So are you ready to take a closer look at your cracks? Are you courageous enough to have them inspected? I'm going to give you an opportunity to take a self-assessment. The Best Christian Workplace Institute has provided a mini assessment. They call it their F16, which stands for their Flourishing 16. These are the 16 questions that most highly correlate to what your overall score would be if you took the whole survey. So I'm going to have you take it now. So if you want to take out a pen or a pencil, this is also in your Yap app. In your Yap app. So if you want to download that later, if you want to share this with your team, you can do that. Note that the Best Christian Workplace Institute has 56 questions, which will help you understand the full survey results. But we'll take this one. So when the question says organization, this is going to be the Kroc Center. This isn't just going to be the Salvation Army overall. This is how you are experiencing the Kroc Center yourself. And you are taking this for you. You as an individual, you are not taking this guessing what your team would say, because we would probably overinflate what we think our team thinks, right? Oh, my team is having such a great time. So this is just you. Your supervisor refers to the person that gives you expectations, performance reviews, who does your schedule. The supervisor is the boss of you for right now. And on a scale of 1 to 5, you're going to say how strongly you agree or disagree. 1, strongly disagree. 5, strongly agree. Make sense? So you're just going to write them down, so number 1 through 16 on a piece of paper, and you'll just write down the number. Okay. Fellow employees are highly committed to excellence in their work. In my work area, we work effectively as a team. I have fun at work. I know what is expected of me. The mission and goals of my organization make me feel my work is important. So those are the first 5. Go ahead and make sure you have a number. 1 is strongly disagree. 5 is strongly agree. Anybody need more time? Great. Okay. 6, my organization retains highly capable employees. My organization retains highly capable employees. My supervisor cares about me as a person. I receive the training needed to carry out my current assignment. I receive the training I need for my current assignment. In comparison with people in similar jobs in other organizations, I am fairly paid. Compared to similar people in similar roles in other organizations, I feel I'm fairly paid. And 10, leaders in my organization exhibit the fruit of the Holy Spirit. The leaders within my Kroc Center exhibit the fruits of the Holy Spirit. Patience, joy, peace, long-suffering. Uh-oh. There's a story. Holy laughter isn't listed on that one. Anybody need more time here? Okay. Number 11, my organization is well managed. The Kroc Center is well managed. Over the past year, my organization has improved for the better. Over the past year, we've improved. My organization has an effective strategy for meeting the needs of those we serve. 14, overall, the quality of program services my organization offers meets the needs of those we serve. So this is the quality of the programs and services. 15, my organization acts on the suggestions of employees. The Kroc Center acts on the suggestions of its employees. And the last one, leaders explain reasons behind major decisions. The leaders of the Kroc Center explain the reasons behind major decisions. Okay, go ahead and add up those numbers. No shame pulling out your calculator. I know the teachers back then said, you won't have a calculator with you in your pocket every day. Go, yes, we do. Right? Yes, we do. I've got my phone. It does. Your result is the sum of your points divided by 16. It's the sum of your points divided by 16. It will tell you where you are personally in your engagement thermometer. I am not going to have you share this at your table. This is your own private assessment. And the reason I wanted you to take this and get a taste and see is if you are a leader of people, you are the key to your team's engagement. And if you aren't getting something, then you can't give something. So there might be some cracks in your plaster wall. You can use this assessment with your team. I will let you know that if it is not confidential, it is very difficult to get some real results from this. We've had teams that have created some of these in some Google Forms, or different people will try to create their own assessments, but when it's not run through a third party, you are only getting half of the truth. So hopefully that helps you. I'm going to transition to how do we combat employee engagement. And there are a lot of different tools and a lot of different processes. There are 6 basic ways that you can improve employee engagement, but then I'm going to talk about the heart of how we can each impact employees on a day-to-day basis. 6 basic ways to improve employee engagement is, of course, to measure it and then work with the data. To define engagement in a realistic, everyday terms. What does that mean for you? What does it mean for the Kroc Center and for your team? The third part is to select the right managers. Are you promoting because of proficiency, or are you promoting because that person has people skills? Oftentimes we promote because of proficiency. This person is great at creating widgets and gadgets. I'm going to make them a people manager so they can oversee this person's development and cultivate a healthy culture. Why am I disappointed that they still just make widgets and gadgets? So we want to select the right managers. The fourth one is to train and coach managers on key skills and competencies. This is something we've spent 10 years on at the church. We used to think that just having people who were passionate for ministry, like our youth director, who oversaw all of our student ministries, was fantastic teacher, fantastic Bible teacher, loves students. This individual couldn't lead his team out of a paper bag. And it's not because he was a bad person. He didn't have fundamental skills. We had to go back and teach basics. We started teaching manager basics every year, and this increased our team engagement. Number 5, focus on engagement at multiple levels, from senior leadership all the way to grassroots. Again, we all hold the key to engagement, and everybody's responsible for the culture. So the senior leaders can do certain things about how we communicate, how we share values, how we set goals and make decisions. But the managers and the staff are responsible for our rules of engagement. How do we want to talk to one another? How do we want to resolve conflict? So we made sure engagement went all the way from top to bottom. And the last one, find ways to connect to every employee. I believe in what's called walk-around management. Walk-around management is when you get outside of your desk and you walk around and make touch points with the different people that you are leading, whether they're staff or volunteers. This is the best way to connect with people. Now, there's a lot of tools and a lot of programs that you can buy, a lot of trainers that you can bring in and spend a lot of money. There are a lot of team exercises, and you can do simulations and a lot of really exciting things that cost a lot of money. But there is a no-cost secret to engagement. Care for your people. Care for your people. It seems so easy, but yet when it comes down to what we're trying to do in the workplace and all of the things on our to-do list, we often forget the basic essentials. Everybody wants to know when they come into the workplace, am I valued? Do you value me as a human being, as a person, someone who has her own desires and thoughts and hopes and dreams? Am I needed here? If I wasn't here, would it matter? If I didn't show up for my shift, would anybody care? Is someone else, could they do their work or step in? Am I really needed on this team? And am I making a difference? Is my job cleaning the floors? Is my job sitting in a lifeguard chair? Is my job leading an aerobics class? Am I really making a difference? I want to know these 3 things. If you can supply these 3 things, you will increase your engagement tenfold by walking around making touch points with human beings. I love this. I saw this for the Salvation Army. I serve a community, a region, a nation, and a world. I am the Salvation Army. I am doing the most good. But so often we are so intent on caring for those outside of our walls, we forget about those who are inside our walls, who are going to be the ones on the front line. So what can we do about it? We can do 4 basic things. And I like C's. If you're going to stick around for my hiring session, we'll have 4 more C's. So I figured alliteration, we'll keep it going. The 4 C's are connection, communication, clarity, and coaching. These are 4 free things that you all can do to increase employee engagement, reduce turnover, and increase your ultimate mission goal of satisfying your members and your congregation members. So what does connection look like? How do you help people know that they are connected to something bigger than themselves? This is the number one thing that will impact your team. You can answer their questions. How does my specific work impact our mission? When we started looking at this with our staff, we started with our cleaning crew. We hire mostly teenagers, high school students, part-time, some only 10 hours a week, some up to 25 hours a week, to come and clean our rooms and to set up events like this. They might roll in the tables, put on the tablecloth, set up the chairs. Do you all have some staff like this? They come in, they do setup, they do cleaning, different things like that. So we ask the question, how do we help them feel connected to what the church does? How in the world could we do this? And what we help them see is what they do is they remove distractions so that people can experience the power of God when they come into our building. They remove distractions. They make sure the garbage is picked up. They make sure the tables are placed right. They make sure that things aren't noisy. We said the same thing to our audio engineers, the same thing to the people who do our cameras, the same thing to our staff that are working on curriculum. When you do this work, this is how it impacts our community. When you make sure that the garbage cans are placed perfectly outside of the doors, you make sure that people have a place to throw their trash so that our venue looks beautiful and it's pleasing to the eye. How are you helping your staff connect their specific work to your mission? What are our short and long-term goals? Could you even articulate that? What is your department, what is the Kroc Center trying to do within the next 30 days? You know, beyond just increased membership, what are you specifically really trying to do? And what is the long-term goal? What does the Kroc Center want to be doing in 3 years and in 5 years? And how are you a part of that? If you can articulate that, you're going to give someone an intrinsic motivation, a hope and desire to want to be a part of that. And what value do I add to our team and our department? How do I add value? We added something to our performance review in the last couple years, and we call it your unique contribution. And we tell each and every staff member what they uniquely bring to the table. And yes, we tell that to our teenagers, and we tell it to our grounds crew, and we tell it to our pastors. And we say, you uniquely bring the gift of joy to the team. And that might seem silly, but we really do have a team member that is just continually filled with joy. Now, we also need to temper that because we kind of need her to focus, but we do both and. You bring the unique contribution of being an expert in the Spanish language and the way that you've been translating our curriculum for our Spanish-speaking folks. That is a gift no one else on our team has. That is a unique contribution. If you weren't here, that wouldn't be happening. So how are you doing at connecting your staff to something bigger than themselves? Communication is the next one. So how are you answering the question, what are the key decisions made by leadership that impact me? Maybe I'm not a part of all those decisions, but I really want to know what they are. And I want to know what they are before our congregation knows. We started instituting a process called a cascading meeting. And when our executive team and our senior leadership team meets and they talk about what's going to be happening in a service, or they talk about what's going to happen 6 months from now because of change in goals or what we're doing, we cascade that message down to each department team. We give that message to each of the managers and we say, this is your responsibility to steward and to share and communicate this in the next week so that all the messages and all the decisions get cascaded within 7 days. This fundamentally changed our trust and leadership score. When our staff saw that the managers were informed and the managers were informed by the senior leaders about the key going on and they're not hearing about it in a service, they were filled with pride and they were filled with just honor, that we honored them with this information. Are my suggestions welcome? Do you all invite and welcome the suggestions of your team? Is there a time and a place for them to offer that? Do they have an opportunity to voice their concerns? Now, I'm not talking about a complaint box. I'm talking about an idea, innovation. How can we make it better? How can we make it different? How would you experience this to the fullest? And the last one, do you care about my personal life? Would you notice if I came in and I was hanging my head? Do you know who my spouse is? Do you know who my kids are? do you know if I'm caring for my aging parents and my teenagers? Do you know that my car broke down? Do you know that I've been struggling with an illness? Your staff want to know if you care. And the best way to show that is to just ask. And these things are free. Clarity. All of our staff want clarity. Staff need to know, what is my role? I don't know about you, but sometimes our job descriptions feel like they change every 6 months, right? Even mine. So I have a book of responsibilities that I have, but depending on what's going on in this season, it seems like I'm taking on more of these things. And all of a sudden I've taken on someone else's responsibility, or I've gotten a new project. Role clarity is key. How do I know what's expected of me? How do I know what I'll be evaluated on? How many of you have looked at your staff's job description in the last 3 months? Anyone? Oh, look at you. Cookies afterwards. There it is. What are my deliverables? What are you expecting from me in the next 30 days? What are you expecting from me in 60 days? How would I know if I'm doing a good job? How would I know if at the end of the week I could go home and say, I did a great job, and I know my boss would say the same? Do your people know that? And how does my role relate to the team? Many of us have blended roles over time. I do a little bit of this, and my team member does a little of that. I might start it, they might finish it. Are there blurred lines within your department? Do people understand who's on first, who's on second? These are great team conversations to have so that everybody feels clear. And the last one is coaching. Everybody wants to know, how am I doing? How am I doing based on your expectations? On a scale of 1 to 10, if you were to say 10 was proficient, where am I in terms of even my proficiency? And is there a path? Can I do it better? And how can I do it better? Will you show me? Will you take the time to sit and give me a sample, a template, show me what you did last year? Will you take the time to show me? And can I ask for help? This was an interesting one. In our organization, our senior pastor had used the phrase a long, long time ago that you should come prayed up and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Now, I think he had made those off-the-cuff remarks in a global leadership summit, but our staff really took that to heart. And they felt like they needed to come in fully prayed up with no prayer requests and no needs. And they also felt like they needed to come in and figure it out themselves. Bill told a story at one of the global leadership summits about how when he was 15 years old, his dad sent him on a trucking trip from Michigan to Florida. Anyone remember that? Okay, long time ago, majorly illegal right now. But he was put on a truck and he was told, figure it out and don't call me. This story permeated our staff over decades, and our staff literally did not ask for help. They were going to figure it out, especially now that we have Google. They can figure out most things, but we brought in situational leadership by Ken Blanchard. He also teaches the course Lead Like Jesus. And in that, it teaches some different language so that we can raise our hands and say, you know what? I do need help. I don't know how to take a next step. I don't know how to do this thing you asked me. And we normalized this for our entire team. This was fantastic. So we said, yes, you can ask for help. So I've given you a whole lot of information. We talked about engagement. We talked about what's behind engagement, how we can look further, that we need to have facts, and those facts are going to be our friends. And I thought about the mission of the Salvation Army, and specifically the Kroc Center. And I thought about what you all are trying to accomplish. And I put it up here. Salvation Army and Ray and Joan Kroc Corp Community Center exist to express the mission and ministry of the Salvation Army through a safe, enriching, and sacred environment where all individuals have access to opportunities to reach their physical, intellectual, social, and spiritual potential. You all have amazing buildings. You all have amazing centers with really some of the state-of-the-art equipment. You have beautiful basketball courts. You have amazing swimming pools. Look at this, splash pads. I mean, really amazing. But what is one thing missing from these pictures? People. There are no people in these amazing buildings, and there's no people at that service. You cannot bring your community into the Kroc Center without a fantastic staff. Your people can fill the halls, your community can fill the halls, but if there's no one there to greet them, to register them, to oversee them in the pool, to lead their events, you will have no community center. You have to have a fantastic team, a thriving team, and an engaged team. You want it to look like this, with this woman leading these kids' camps. You want it to look like this, where someone is giving their time to play basketball with the guys in the community. You want it to look like this, where the kids are in the pool, safe and happy, off the streets, with safe lifeguards. And you want it to be like this. You want a safe place where your community can come and find trusted friendships, people outside of their communities where they can feel connected to and they can get hope and they can learn about Jesus. You want this, right? This is how you know if you've been successful at the end of the year. People's faces, people that show up. You've got more members, more people joining the church, more people giving their life to Christ. This is what an engaged team is going to do for you. Thank you.
Well, I think that was absolutely outstanding. Thank you so much. And in just a few moments, after we have a little bit of a break, you will have an opportunity, some of you, to stay right in this room to enjoy a next presentation from Tara. Get and build a fantastic team by hiring right. And then some of you are signed up for growing your staff and how to motivate and empower. And that's with Eric Van Cleven. Is Eric here yet, or is he setting up some? He's setting up, and that's in A, B, and C? Okay. And then, of course, some of you will have an opportunity to go to the volunteering and community partnerships session, which will be in G, H, I, on the other side. Okay, Janelle. Any other instructions that you have? But before Janelle comes up, let's give one more applause to our speaker.
Just as a quick reminder, after the next session, I'm throwing things. After the next session, your lunches will be available in the hallway. They're box lunches for your lunch and learn sessions, which will start at 12:30. So after your next session, please grab a lunch. If you have any questions about where you're going, please let the registration table know, and we will be more than happy to assist you. And thank you again, and I hope you guys are having a great conference.